Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to this week's Shaar. I had a nice moment. I don't know if it's nice or embarrassing, but one of the listeners told me on Shabbos that he always listens on YouTube, and this week I put it up late, and therefore he has a set time on Tuesdays for the Shaar, so it didn't work out. So I'm apologizing here, and I will try to have the Shaar up and running consistently, and whoever didn't see it in the group, I'll put it also previous Shaar on the group as well. Just a couple of hours ago, I had an interesting incident. We talk about this. Shkocha brought this. Somebody called me with a very complicated situation, and they needed a certain doctor, psychiatrist, to speak to them. And they asked me for help, and I said, okay, I can try. I was very limited in time, and I didn't know how to call the hospital and how to get through and how to manage. And within about 10 minutes, I had a break, and then suddenly my phone rings, and that specific doctor called me, and we haven't spoken in, I don't know even how long. And after she said what she wanted, I said, it's amazing. I was actually about to call you. And the doctor started laughing. She said, yeah, if I would get a $1 for every time people tell me this is exactly I was about to call you. And she was saying, I'm sure everybody tells me that. And it's like she made a joke. And I said, no, seriously, I was about to call you. And I actually think that the reason maybe it sounds like that and that it's so funny, it's because Hashem runs the world, and many times people need you, and because you're in such an important position, they don't have your cell phone, they don't have how to find you, they need to call a hospital, get to reception to that ward, and the ward will call the doctor, or they won't call the doctor, or whatever it is. So maybe that's why Hashem actually makes you call people when they need you. So it's just an interesting thing that many times we laugh. Many times there's a time we call somebody and we'll say, oh, I was just about to call you, and everybody thinks it's funny, but really there is a sense of siyata dishmaya here, and that there is this concept that many times Hashem will help us get the person we need if we won't have the other way an option, or it just won't work. So this is our way to do it. So it was this interesting incident just a couple of hours ago. Anyways, going into last week's discussion, quite a few people spoke to me about it. It was a very big Shaar. Just a reminder, we ended off last week with the concept of the reasons why Hashem makes us work hard for our parnasa. And the Chovos Halevavos brings two main reasons, why Hashem created the world in this way. Why not just got to get a parnasa somehow, or we wouldn't need a parnasa. We could have just anything we want at any time. And Hashem created the world in a way that we need parnasa. We said two things. Number one, so we know that. One second. Let's go into it. I'm just. Oh, so number one, we saw that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts us through this test of seeing if a person is in a situation that, although he has to do the ishtadlus and he has to work very hard, he's not doing something that he's not supposed to. He's not doing something wrong. He needs parnasa very well, but he's still staying honest, because Hashem is giving him this test to see that he'll rely on Hashem and he'll do it in the right way, and he'll do it in the way he's supposed to. And being able to prove that he still has the Habitachon and he still has the honesty and the journey of doing the right thing. And the second thing is, sometimes a person would be bored. If the person has enough money and enough parnasa and too much extra time, then we can do many things that aren't appropriate. Not always remember to use our time for learning or for mitzvahs or for productive things. And we have unlimited budget and unlimited time, and it could be a disaster. So sometimes Hashem puts a person in a position that he has to work hard for his parnasa, so that he doesn't have time for nonsense. He doesn't have time and a nisayon to do an avera because he needs to go work now. He doesn't have time to waste. And that we saw as the second reason, right? So just in a summary. So the one reason is because to test us, and the other reason is to know that we are not wasting our time and on nonsense. By the way, it's not interesting Sfasemis just this week on the Parsha of Lech Lecha, the one that just passed. And he speaks about the concept, I'm not going to go too much into it, but the whole concept of Avraham Avinu, who it sounds from the Psukim almost that Hashem told him, take your journey and I'll give you lots of money and children and fame and blessings. And we usually say that Avram listened to what Hashem said, and he listened to Hashem said, and he went on his journey on Lech Lecha. But if you look in the Psukim, says Fasemes, it does look like he's actually listened to all the blessings, and it almost sounds like Hashem chose to do all these all the journey of Lech Lecha. He stood on Nisayon because Hashem promised him all this good stuff, which is not how we normally would view Avram Avinu, and it doesn't make sense. That Avram Avinu, who recognized Hashem, his motive to go on this journey and to do what Hashem tells him is because he'll have lots of kids and lots of money and fame and etc. So he says like this. He says in a very short way. He says that when a father wants to give something to his son, right? You want to buy your son a bike. You want to buy your son something big. It's not even healthy educational to just shower your son with all the goods because he'll get spoiled. He won't achieve. He won't grow, right? Although my mom always used to say, it's okay if you're spoiled as long as you're not rotten. But anyways, we don't want our kids to be spoiled. We don't want them to not know. So we come to our children. We want to get them something. So we say, listen, do this and this in school and I'll get you something. Clean up the house, I'll give you something. Do something, I'll give you something. Because we want some kind of responsibility, some kind of motive. We can't just run around and not teach our kids responsibility. So this Vasem is a child that understands that. So he understands that his father wants to get him this big present for no reason, but it's not the right thing. So he wants to do the right thing. He wants to do the right thing so his father would be able to give it to him, not because he wants necessarily the bike or the Legos or whatever it is. He wants that his father would be able to fulfill his will and give him what he wants to give him. So that's what Avraham Avinu was doing in a nutshell, that concept of actually enabling Hashem to give him all the good in a good way, which is something we can do as well, which we'll see very quickly into this concept of if we see why we need to do parnasa, we'll see how we can avoid it, how we can keep our days busy. But then he added something else. I saw Rabbi Safar showed me amazing. He added something else, and he says that every penny Hashem gives us, Hashem calculates. And he said that it's calculated to the level that if a person will have an extra cent, it won't be good for him. It would be too much. It would be already the feeling of, I could manage, I don't need to work so hard, I could waste my time on nonsense. Let me go watch something, let me go do something. He says, Hashem calculates to the penny how much money we can handle, and that's what we can get. The only way to actually make more money, make more parnasa, is to become people that can handle more. And if we can handle more, Hashem wants to give us, right? We want to give kids, your child comes and he asks for Coke. You want to give him as much as he wants, but it's not healthy. If he could physically handle more, you'll be easier about it. If your child can handle more, you'll be stricter. So if we can create and enable ourselves to become people that can handle more, then we will get more, because Hashem wants to give us more. We just need to be able to handle it. And that's the concept of parnasa. Instead of using our time in trying to change the situation, maybe work when we're not supposed to, or maybe even to a certain degree tefillah. Tefillah, obviously, we need to do all the time. However, we can't forget because of that the concept of if we enable ourselves to be people that can handle the money, and it's not easy, then we are able to actually we're able to get more money. and I've heard from people, especially in my field, that if we look in education and we look in consulting, many times we get phone calls from people when they're stressed out. So if a person is in a challenging financial situation, a therapist, then they'll take people whenever the people come. And maybe it could be a situation that Hashem will say, okay, listen, I can't make you too rich, because then if there's going to be a yid, a Jew in a stressful situation, you're going to be comfortable, and you'll say, well, sorry, I'm busy. I don't work after 5 o'clock in the evening. I think I have an opening in about 3 weeks. And the person's stressed out. So what could happen? I'm not saying this is the reality, but what could happen? This therapist will be stressed financially, and then somebody will come late at night, and he'll need the finances, so he'll help somebody. So what does this person need to have an easier time financially? If he will accept on himself, if he'll mekabel in a very strong way, that whenever someone comes upon him that needs help, he'll be there for that person. Again, not instead of his learning and his davening, and not instead of the time he needs to give to his kids and family, but I'm talking when he has the time, when it's a question of playing a very, very important bowling game, or seeing somebody that needs help right now. So if he could tell Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I will help this person, even if I have a very attractive bowling game and I have enough finances, I'll still go help, then maybe he'll have the ability to get more. But if he'll be in the situation that he won't want to help unless he needs the finances, then he may find himself in a situation that he does need the finances, because Hashem wants to make sure that all the people get what they need. So just as an example of the journey a person needs to take in order to be there and be able to handle more money, be able to handle more parnasa, be able to handle a situation that he can get all the good things Hashem wants to give you. So he says like this: if a person is having financial stress, and then he decides that any extra moment he will dedicate to Torah, that when he needs to work, fine. But when he doesn't, he'll use his time properly and show Hashem that if he has more time, he'll use the time for productive things. He'll use the time for chesed. He'll use the time for Torah. He'll use the time for his family, for the right things. And he won't take the extra time for nonsense. He will not basically fall in the trap of the Yetzer Hara. Then Hashem will be able to lift up the stress of parnasa from him. Hashem will say, okay, if you're going to use this time well, and it's not going to come and bring down your ruchnius level, then Hashem will say, fine, I'll lift off your parnasa. But if somebody, by making more money, is going to lose his level of Yiddishkeit, he's going to lose his level of Torah, he's going to lose his level of doing the right thing. He'll lose, even if he'll just lose his connection with Hashem. Somebody davens Hashem 3 times a day from the bottom of his heart for parnasa, and once he has parnasa properly, then he'll lose the connection with Hashem. I don't want to use the word, what interest does Hashem have to help him? But honestly, why would it be the right thing for this person to get money if that will take away his connection from Hashem? That's why Chazal tell us that it's much harder. Right? The challenge of being rich is much bigger than being poor. Why? Because naturally, if you need the connection with Hashem, then you invest in that connection. Right? They say many times, it's famous, very sad joke that sometimes older people have to make up that they have all these assets and a nice house, and they're writing their will now, and suddenly all their grandchildren come to visit, or they have some other stuff there, whatever it is that will attract the grandchildren there, which means that in a way we get attracted. So if a child will come to his grandparents or visit the people regardless, they won't need to put him in the challenging situation. They'll come. It's the same thing. If a person is connected to Hashem regardless, then he doesn't need the challenge of Parnasa to get closer to Hashem. I've heard many times from people that they've told me, the closer we get to Hashem, the harder financially we have it. And according to this, it makes sense, because if somebody was not close to Hashem, and when they were struggling financially, they were just struggling or frustrated, but it didn't help them to get closer to Hashem. They didn't know at the time that if you don't have what you need, you speak to Hashem and you ask Him for help, or you connect to Him, or you do turn mitzvahs and you get it. So then Hashem gave them parnasa because there was no benefit of giving them the challenge. But once a person gets closer, now the person knows that if there's any trouble or any challenge, he'll do a segula, he'll daven, he'll connect to Hashem, he'll do something productive, he'll do chesed. Then it's worth giving him that challenge. And if it's worth giving him that challenge, then sometimes that's why things get a bit harder. And they could get harder. And the way to deal with it is very simple. Once you can maintain your level of ruchnius without the challenge, you won't need the challenge anymore. Once you can maintain your level of learning, your level of connection with Hashem, then you won't have this challenge. So comes the Chovos and says, and now you'll come and ask me, he says, that doesn't make sense. Why? We do see some tzaddikim that are definitely connected to Hashem completely, right? They're definitely connected to Hashem, and they do have a hard time getting parnasa. And you see people that are definitely disconnected, and they don't have such a hard time getting parnasa. So how could it be? If you said that sometimes we get parnasa or taken away, even sometimes we lose parnasa because we'll use the time for nonsense. So I see this tzaddik that every moment he has, he goes learns Torah. And if he'll have parnasa, he'll sit and learn. And I see this person who every moment he has, he'll get another movie, another game, another nonsense, another avera. Then, and he does have. So how does it work? How does it make sense? So the truth is, I'm not gonna go in deeply to what the Chovos says, but he does take quite a journey here, focusing on the concept that there is a concept of Hanistoris Lashem Elokeinu v'aniglos lanu levanenu. There is a concept of Hester, that Hashem has reasons for things that we don't understand. So although he's going to explain logic and reasons why it works that way, we need to remember that there is that concept that not everything we understand. Many times Hashem has his own, does cheshbonos for the best, for whatever it is. And as he says, sometimes Hashem decides that for tzaddikim, the right thing is to be standard through the test. Especially we see these parashas of Avraham Avinu was tested 10 times. Somebody came up to me this Shabbos and said, why 10 times? Couldn't he have passed the test in once or twice or 3 times? I'm not going to go into that discussion. But the concept is, sometimes tzaddikim do need this test, and they benefit from that test. And every test they manage, and they get a good mark, they get much more schar, they get much more stuff. So it is the right thing for them. And sometimes Rishonim get a lot of good stuff in this world because they have some mitzvahs, and it takes away from what they have. They get their schar here because Hashem does give schar for everybody for anything. Okay? And we need to understand that Hatzur Tomim Pe'oloi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Tomim. It's complete what he does. Kol Rochel Mishpat. Everything is calculated, everything is clear, and not necessarily that we have the full picture. Well, we all know the famous story with Chofetz Chaim, that he was once in shul, and somebody passes in Radin, and he walks into the shul, and he sees that laning on Shabbos, and the whole laning, the Chofetz Chaim didn't get an aliyah. So he walks up to the Gabbai, and he starts shouting at him, and he says, you lost your mind, the Chofetz Chaim is here, and you don't give him an aliyah? What did the Gabbai say? The Gabbai said, listen, I'm a Gabbai here for 20 years, I'm going to be here, not planning to resign, and I have my calculations. You weren't here last week. You're not going to be here next week. You don't know how I run the shul. You don't know how I give out my aliyahs. You don't know how I make things work. You just have ideas to come and say, well, do this, do that. You don't know the picture. Same thing with us. We live in the world for 70, 80, 90, 120 years. Be'ezer Hashem. There were thousands of years before us. There's going to be quite a few hundred years after us. We can't come and say, well, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. It's a joke. It's a joke to come and start analyzing what's fair and what doesn't make sense, when the reality is that we've, in history of 6,000 years altogether, we're here for a very short time. And in that short time, we can't come in and give concepts of judgment. However, he does say, Im kol ze ro'isi levar b'inyan hazeh, a few reasons why Hashem does it that way. Because once to realize that it doesn't take away from this concept. So somebody will say, well, it doesn't work. It won't work that if I know for sure that I'll dedicate my time, my free time, to do the right thing, it won't necessarily give me more parnasa, because I can see what's happening to my friend the rabbi and my neighbor the rabbi and all the rabbis, and they don't have and whatever. All right, it won't help. So he says a few things. Number one, the basic, which we spoke about, could be that a tzaddik has to work hard for his parnasa, because maybe he has a sin. He sinned, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants him to come fully clean to Olam Ha'emes, and Hashem wants him to come with no question about it, with no sacks behind him, nothing. And we know that there isn't a tzaddik in the world who doesn't sin at all. So Hashem gives him challenges. And just to understand how much we get for every schar, the Chazal tell us that, the Gemara says that if somebody lives his life with 0 Yisurim, then he should be very nervous. That means Hashem is giving him a perfect life in this world, and he's going to have only, and he's not going to have any challenges, and he's not going to have any schar in Olam Haba, because his life is perfect here. So then that means he got all his schar here. That's what the Gemara tells us, that we don't need that if a person has 0 Yisurim. But then, so anybody who learns this gets scared, because our lives generally are okay. So what is Yisurim? It says like this: Yisurim is if you stick your hand in your pockets and you need to pay somebody a 5 rand coin, and you stick your hand in your pocket, and instead of a 5 rand, a 2 rand comes out. So now, Rachmanis, you need to put your hand back in and try to take out the other coin. So that inconvenience is already Yisurim. So I'm assuming that no one that I know, definitely not part of the Shaar or anybody I know in the world, could say that he doesn't have any Yisurim in this world, not even that he tries to take one coin and a different coin comes out. However, what's the concept? Because even such small Yisurim are measured. So obviously, if somebody has Averas, somebody has things he needs to fix, somebody has things he needs to achieve in this world, so Hashem would challenge it in that way that he will get his schar in this world. He won't get his schar. He'll get all his schar in the next world, but in this world he will just get hard work, parnasa, challenges, and therefore he can come clean to the next world. I'm just going to check the time. So I see time was, we're not going to have a long time, because maybe one day we'll get to an amazing story from the Rashash about how much people can achieve by Yisurim. And definitely what Chazal tells us, that if somebody would know what he gains from Yisurim, he would want as much as he can. He would enjoy every moment of suffering. I guess another oxymoron, but he would literally enjoy every minute of suffering, knowing what he's going to gain from it. To the level that if we look in Gemara and Brachas, the Gemara speaks about Amoraim that came to visit each other, and they saw them suffering, and they asked them, "Do you want me to heal you or not?" And Amoraim said yes, but the concept was, why? Before you just go heal somebody, make sure he doesn't want the Yisurim. And then we say that we don't want Yisurim, we don't ask for it, we try to avoid it, but we need to understand that it's for our benefit if we get it. And anyways, the Amoraim wouldn't just heal somebody before they asked permission, "Do you want me to heal you?" Because for whatever reason, they need it. Just just imagine somebody chas v'shalom has a fire in his house, and he calls the insurance, and the day before the insurance comes to evaluate and pay him, somebody surprises him and paints the whole house. Obviously, he won't be happy about it, even though he did him a big favor. That's how Chazal Amorim used to look at it, that you don't just heal somebody and take away all his Yisurim away. So that's one thing. The second thing is, here's an interesting thing. He says, there are people that get paid for the Yisurim Bo'ilam Haba. Not only that it takes away their Averas, you can actually actively get Shaar, that a person could actually get Shaar for the Yisurim. If a person got Yisurim for no reason, Chas v'shalom, no reason, but somebody will give somebody Yisurim in this world, he will benefit from it because he'll be more pure, he'll be more, regardless of that, he'll just grow, he'll just achieve, he'll just be in a position that he suffered in this world, which means that in the next world he's able to have more pleasure. So that's the second thing. The third thing, I'm just going to go a bit quick through it. He says, sometimes it's a person can be a lesson to teach other people what could happen. Sometimes people can see, and they could see how good they have it for themselves. Sometimes they could see a person going through Yisurim, and they could see how important it is to do the right thing in Avodas Hashem. So now everybody will say, whoa, 1 second, that's not fair. So what? So we're going to take one guy and make him the person, like, remember when I was growing up in school, always was this thing, sometimes the Rabbi would choose one child, teach him a lesson for everybody, right? Sorry about that. So sometimes the Rabbi would teach a lesson. So what? That doesn't make sense. It's not fair to anybody. Obviously, this point has to go together with the other things, that it's somebody that is benefiting from it. He'll get schar for it, because here's a big thing. If somebody makes a Kiddush Hashem, then he will get paid for it properly. And that's maybe, it's a time, I know it's a bit off topic, maybe it's a time to explain. As I said, I've heard from my one of my rabbis in school. He always used to say that his Kabbalah from the Mashgichim is that if something comes to mind, and when you're speaking to Tzibur, you should say it, even if it's off topic, because Hashem put that thought in your head. But this concept of understanding that a person will be paid for it, if a person goes through some Yisurim, he's learned from it. We have to understand. Sometimes we think, many times, and I really many times, when I speak to younger bochrim, they'll say, they'll always come like this. They'll say, my Rebbe taught me that Hashem created the mitzvahs and averos, and Hashem created the world, so we'll do the right thing, and we'll get schar, right? So because we have all these mitzvahs, Hashem didn't want to give us all the schar, and He didn't want to give us all the schar, so and we'll be embarrassed that we get it. So He gave us also the mitzvahs and averos, so we'll make the right decision. So they come and they say, well, that's not fair, because maybe we're not going to make the right decision. And then this whole plan of Hashem is making us just do averos and get punished. So rather, either give us schar and we'll be embarrassed, or we won't be part. We won't be part of this whole concept. But to say, here, I'm giving you a challenge, I'm giving you a nisayon, so you could win and get schar. Well, not everybody wins. So Hashem's putting me in a space that I may do averos and get punished. So that's not only for the best. And that's a very long and deep topic. However, we need to understand that also the person who does the right thing and gets punished in Olam HaEmes, he still is Magdil Kavod Shomayim. He's still making Kavod Shomayim stronger by showing what happens to a person who doesn't do the right thing. So he's still doing something to be mechabed Hashem, and he will get rewarded for it. It's a bit of a complicated term to understand, but we know that Chazal tell us that the Mekoshesh Eitzim in the Midbar, right? Everybody knows the story that Mekoshesh Eitzim and Moshe Rabbeinu said he needs to die. At the end of Makkos, in the first parak, the Gemara asked over there. The Gemara goes into discussion over there, and the conclusion in Tosfos is very interesting conclusion that people will never be willing to die for Chilul Shabbos. A person that knows that if he does this sin, he will get killed in Bezdin, he would do it for killing somebody. Somebody could be so upset and say, I'll kill him even if I die. And somebody could do a taiva of arayas even if he dies. But for Chilul Shabbos, nobody will do it. So the simple question is, we see that the Mekoshesh Eitzim in the Midbar did Chilul Shabbos and he died. And that's why Rashi comes and says, and he says, Chazal say that he did it l'shem shamayim. He wanted to show what will happen to somebody who's Mechal Shabbos. So because everybody saw that he did it, they realized it's serious and you can't be Mechal Shabbos. That's why it was an example, it was proof, it showed that that's the right way to serve Hashem. Same thing, if a person does an aver in this world and he gets punished in Olam Ha'emes, his punishment shows the creation what happens to somebody who doesn't listen to Hashem. That itself is making Kvod Shamayim bigger. That itself is already a higher level than a goy. People always say, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek lo olam haba. And again, a concept that I hear from young kids sometimes, they say, well, a goy, he doesn't have olam haba, he doesn't have Gan Eden, he doesn't have Gehenim, but he doesn't get punished for what he does. I'm not talking about Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach. So he's in a better space. But he's not, because for him, he leaves the world and it's over. Over here, we're talking about a situation that a person does something bad, chas v'shalom, he's still making Kvod Shamayim bigger. He's still making an example. He's still showing what happens if a person doesn't listen to Hashem. So that itself is doing Nachas Ruach to Hashem. That itself is something that a person can get reward on. Now, I don't want to go into it deeply because it's off topic, as I said, but it's a very important concept to realize, to learn. Okay, so the second thing is, sometime a person can get, again, it has to be a very high level and he'll get loads of schar for it, but a person could take the punishment of the door, of the generation. A person that can handle it, sometimes when there's a lot of things going in the world, a lot of negative things, a tzaddik could take upon himself a certain level of kapara, of sacrifice for the generation, for other people. So even though a person, what he says here, that even though a person won't necessarily become an example for the door. Before we said if somebody becomes an example, everybody will see what happens and they'll learn from him, even if it's not the case. And nobody's going to learn from this tzaddik, and he's just going to suffer. He still could do it to test he himself, or Hashem will do it to somebody to be mechaper for the door, to do kapar for the generation, and he'll deal with it. Right? Sometimes, and that's another thing. I'm just going a bit quickly. Obviously, if anybody has a question, you could type it or ask. Just unmute yourself or afterwards. It could be, says, sometimes a tzaddik could get punished, actually. It looks like a tzaddik, all he's doing is learning Torah, but really there's a different kavod on him. For instance, that he's not influencing his other people in the generation to do tshuva. He's not fighting the milchama of Hashem. He's not making an extra effort to change the situation in the world, to influence other people, to connect to other people. And there's a taina on him, right? So that is also a reason why a tzaddik sometimes could get punished, because he's not taking upon himself the responsibility to help other people to to take responsibility and help them for their ruchnias, which means we have to understand it's not our position. Definitely, I'm not saying going to see that if somebody does something wrong to go and give him big mussar and change things. Definitely not. When Chazal tell us that just like it's a mitzvah to say something that you'll be heard, it's a mitzvah to keep quiet when you won't be heard. And we definitely live in a generation that majority of the times people won't listen to us. However, we can influence the world by some responsibility. We can influence the world by leading by example. And it's important. And it's important. I was having a discussion with somebody, and he and some in the community, and he showed me so many doctors that speak that masks are not a good idea and they're not necessary and they are necessary, whatever. And especially if you're walking and you're trying to do some walking outside and it's fresh air, there's no one around you, people see you from distance and there's nobody in your 2 meters, you're just bothering your own breathing, you won't be able to do sports, it's not the right thing. And I heard him. And then the next day he tells me, he comes to me, he says, I don't understand. After my whole speech to you yesterday, I was driving in the street and I saw you walking and you were with a mask. There was no one around you. Why were you wearing a mask? It doesn't make sense. And I told him very simply, I said, at that point, at that time, and I'll say this very gently, but there was a lot of focus in the community and wider place. Are from people wearing masks, or they're following the orders, or they're not davening in minyan, or they're not doing the right thing? And I said, yes, I don't think necessarily I need a mask, but I also don't want to make a chilul Hashem. And for me, it's more important not to make a chilul Hashem, although I'm going to be very uncomfortable with my mask. So there won't be a bad influence. There won't be a discussion. And that's a responsibility that we have. And the person needs to take that responsibility to lead by example for the negative and for the positive, not to do negative things, and yes, to do positive things. And even by not talking, but just by creating that example of doing the right thing, then he will influence the world. You know, probably a lot of the people here have been to Israel before. You must have realized that when you get on the plane here in Joburg, everybody on the line is everybody standing nicely and again waiting for to stamp their passports and to check and go through everything. And the same people get on the plane and sometimes even land in Addis, and we're all in this line, and then get on the plane and everybody's polite, and then you land in Israel. 3 minutes into it, you're in the passport check in Israel. I don't know if any of you tried to queue it over there properly. Complete chaos. And you look around and you say, well, 1 second, these people stood in line with me, they queued with me in Joburg, and it was fine. They queued with me in the Addis, it was fine. What happened here? Suddenly everybody's running and pushing and going in all directions and you know, like calling, no, I just need to. Yeah, we all just need to. But chaos. Why? Because when you're in an environment of people doing the right thing, then you don't feel uncomfortable doing the wrong thing. When you're in an environment that's what's happening, that's what's happening. Nobody will be the only one talking in shul. But some of us may answer if somebody asked us a question. We also don't want to offend him and the Shem Shomayim. We want to make a Kiddush Hashem or whatever it is, right? So maybe we're not in a point in this situation right now in the world where we're at to influence and make a better world by telling people what they did wrong. But we're definitely in the point of making a better world by doing the right thing. And that is something we need to take responsibility. And that is something that the Chovos Halevavos says could be definitely a reason why somebody would be struggling financially. If he's not taking responsibility for other people in the world, in generation. And again, right now, I'm talking about in a positive way, creating an environment of good things happening. Once a person does that, then a person can definitely grow and achieve in that direction. So I see time has come to, we finished pretty much this year. So we went pretty much through the list of reasons why a tzaddik could have uh, um, financial challenge. And the next list, which we'll see next week, as Hashem, is going to be the list of why a Russia sometimes will have easier finances. So he, just like he gave a list of reasons why the tzaddik could have financial struggles, so he also gives a list of why it would make sense for uh, Russia to have easy finances. However, again, reminding what he said, that he chose to give examples and logic, but really we shouldn't, and there's no reason for us to start judging Hashem, how he does, why he does, and what, because we don't understand. We're just here for a short period of time. There was before us, there will be after us, and there's a bigger picture. But